So let's get started. All right, so today's essay is today's essay is going to be the agree-disagree essay. So for this essay, you have to take an opinion. You have to either strongly agree with a statement, meaning that you agree all the way 100%. You can somewhat agree, meaning that you have two opinions, really, that you agree on one hand, but disagree also on the other. Or you can take the point of view that you completely disagree. Okay, so you need to take an opinion, write about it, and support it. So this is the structure of an essay, which you should all know by now. We have the introduction as the first paragraph, which introduces the essay topic and your opinion. Body paragraph 1, which talks about the first opinion. Body paragraph 2, which looks at the second opinion. And the conclusion, which pretty much sums it up. So here's a more detailed breakdown of the essay structure. Introduction consists of 3 sentences. We have here the first sentence, which is a paraphrase of the first part of the question. Second sentence, which is a paraphrase of the second part of the question. And the third sentence, which answers the question. Your body paragraphs each look at one main idea. They give an explanation of that main idea with reasons and examples, and then link back to the main idea, transitioning to the next. Your conclusion is always a paraphrase of the first part of the question again, a paraphrase of the second part of the question again, and then answering the question again. So the conclusion is almost like a mirror image of the introduction. So today we're going to look at how to write or answer a disagree-agree essay question and how to structure it bit by bit. So what do you have to do with this essay question type? The first thing you need to do is look for keywords. You need to find out exactly what the essay question is about. What's the topic? What's the main idea? These are your keywords. You then want to unpack the question, which means break it up into parts to make sure that you really understand it. Then you need to identify the topic to make sure that you're writing exactly about the topic, that you're addressing the topic specifically. Because lots of people write more generally about a topic and may lose marks in the task response criteria for not writing directly about the topic. So that's step 3. And step 4 is then answer the question using the formula. So let's look at step 1. Look for keywords or phrases in the essay question. So what are keywords? Keywords are those words that really stand out in the question. Keywords are not prepositions, articles, joining words. Keywords are nouns and verbs. So what are the keywords in this essay question? Let's go through it together. Increasing car usage. So car usage is the main point or the main topic. This is a subject here. And what about car usage? It's increasing. Large global cities is another keyword or key phrase here. A number of problems. And then banning private vehicles. Banning private vehicles from the city centre. Agree with this method. So if we want to just look at the keywords, increasing car usage, global cities, problems, banning private vehicles, city centre, agree. So we can get the main idea here by just looking at the keywords. Now we want to unpack the question. So a lot of the time when we get an essay question, it can look like a paragraph. an essay question. It can be 4 to 5 sentences. And we look at it and we might say, okay, well, what is the essay about? What is it asking me to do? There's too much information. So we need to unpack it, take out the important pieces and separate them to make sure we really understand the question. So, part 1 of an essay question, usually it comes in 3 parts. Part 1 usually introduces the general topic. So the general topic of the one we just looked at was increasing car usage. So we know that the essay question is about cars. The second part of the question, the second sentence, usually links it to a specific idea. The specific idea here was that we should ban cars in large cities. So banning the cars. This is the specific idea related to the topic. And then part 3 is usually your instructions, an explanation of what the essay requires you to do. So let's break this essay question up or unpack it into its 3 parts. Part 1, increasing car usage in many global cities has caused a number of problems. This is introducing us to the general idea. Part 2, the specific idea related to car usage in global cities is it should be banned, that some cities have proposed banning private vehicles from the city centre. And then part 3 is to what extent do you agree with this method? So to what extent do you agree that cars should be banned in city centres? So the general topic, increasing car usage. The specific idea is that, okay, because there are many problems with cars in cities, we should ban them. Then part 3 is what do you have to do? You have to explain whether you agree with this method or disagree with this method. So there are the 3 parts of our essay question. Next, you want to identify the topic. So generally, what is the essay question about? What is it asking? So what is the topic? A, new cars. B, banning private cars in cities. Or C, I have no idea. So the answer, of course, is B, banning private vehicles in cities. This is the idea that you have to take an opinion on. So I'm going to give you a little task. Here is an essay question. In the modern world, many children spend a lot of time in front of computers, televisions, and smartphones. This is very harmful to them. To what extent do you agree? So first task, what are the key words in that question? I'm going to give you 60 seconds to type them in. Okay, let's have a look. The keywords here are children. Okay, the main idea or the main subject of this essay is children. What about children? Computers, television, smartphones, okay, technology usage. What about it? That it's harmful. So the harmful effects of technology on children, and do you agree? So these are our keywords here. What are the 3 parts of the essay question? So unpacking it, what's the main idea? So the main idea is this: in the modern world, children are spending more time in front of technology. The second part is the specific idea that it's harmful. Okay, this is the opinion that you need to agree with. Is it harmful? Yes or no? What's the topic? Oops, the topic is the harm of technology to children. So this brings us to step 4. Now that we can understand the different parts of the essay question, break it down so that we know exactly what we need to write about, next thing we need to do is brainstorm and plan. Brainstorm means think of ideas. So here you're going to have lots of ideas related to the topic. And planning is then taking those multitudes of ideas and planning, okay, which ones am I going to use in my essay to really focus it. So back to our original question about car usage, and some cities should ban private vehicles in the city centres. To what extent do you agree with this method? I'm just going to spend about a minute thinking about ideas for both agree and disagree, looking at the pros and cons of banning cars in cities. So on the one hand, there are 3 reasons for why I could agree with this. It could reduce traffic, reduce pollution, and increase the use of public transport, which in turn will help the environment. On the other hand, there's always cons. And the cons are, well, existing public transport and infrastructure may not cope. And city residents and businesses rely on cars, rely on the use of these vehicles. Okay, so I've brainstormed, I've thought of these ideas. It's your turn. Come up with 2 or 3 ideas for agree and 2 or 3 for disagree for the question related to children and technology. Okay, do you agree that technology is harmful to children? 3 reasons why you agree, 3 reasons why you disagree. Actually, just give me 2 for each. We're not going to have time for 3. Okay, so Muhammad has written for agree, vision damage and loss of time. So they're 2 very valid reasons for agree. And then disagree was someone wrote easy access to education. So yep, technology could be educational. And one of the other answers here was body and mind coordination. Good. So these are all very valid and relevant possibilities. Next step. So now that we've brainstormed our ideas, we need to then apply them to the formula. So an essay formula is very much like a mathematical formula. It's a template. You follow the template and all you're doing is inserting the content. Let's have a look at an example. Again, I'm bringing you back to the first slide that we looked at, the essay formula, introduction. The introduction is based on the question. So another reason why it's important to unpack the question is because the 3 parts of that question are going to form the 3 parts of your introduction. So in the introduction, you want to paraphrase the general statement, sentence 1. Sentence 2, you want to paraphrase the specific statement from the question, which is the second sentence. Sentence 3, you want to answer the question. The question is, to what extent do you agree? Here in sentence 3, this is where you will say, I agree to a large extent, or I disagree. So here's where you answer the question. Then, body paragraph 1 is going to start off with the main idea. The main idea, these come from your brainstorming table that we just did earlier. So for example, I agree that technology is harmful to children because it can hurt their vision. That's one idea. Then you will explain and give an example for how can technology be harmful to children's vision? In what way does it harm their vision? Sentence 4, you're basically repeating the main idea again and linking or transitioning to the next one. The next one is going to be the second main idea. So the second reason why I agree that technology is harmful to children is because, what was the example? Is because it makes them antisocial. Then you would explain, how can technology make children antisocial? Give examples, and then reiterate your main idea again. Your sentence is always to conclude or in conclusion, and then you do the same thing that you did in the introduction. You paraphrase the general statement or the first sentence of the question. You paraphrase the specific statement or the second sentence of the question. And then you answer the question again, restating your opinion. So as you can see, every part of the essay has a very specific formula that we use to make into one coherent piece of writing. So let's have a look at the introduction formula. Breaking it down, paraphrase the question, sentence 1 of the question, paraphrase sentence 2 of the question, answer the question. Let's look at an example. Oops. Sorry guys, give me 1 second. You can't see that one, so give me 1 sec. Okay, as the global population has increased significantly, so has the number of cars on the road. So here I've actually taken this first sentence from the first sentence of the question. Then I've taken the second sentence from the question and I've paraphrased it. This dramatic rise has led to the suggestion that large urban areas should prohibit private vehicles. And I've used synonyms here. The question said city centres. I've said urban areas. The question said ban. I've used the word prohibit. So I've used synonyms to express the same idea. Part 3, answer the question. I disagree with this to a large extent for 2 reasons, and this essay will explain why. So not only have I answered the question, I've given my opinion, and I've also said what the essay will do. This essay will explain why. Okay? So putting it all together, here is my introduction. Okay, so now that we know how to write an introduction, I would like you to write the first sentence of your introduction for this essay question. So remember, identifying or unpacking the different parts and then paraphrasing each part. But I just want you to do the first sentence. I'll give you 1 minute. Okay, time's up. I'll just read for you Muhammad's answer. So he said, youngsters are spending a huge amount of time using electronic gadgets in the current times. So electronic gadgets instead of computers, televisions, and smartphones, that's a great synonym. One thing, when we're talking about in current times or in the modern world, we want to make sure that we put that at the start of the sentence, not at the end. Okay, another answer, computer, television, and smartphones are the most common thing used by children. Good, by children these days, we can add at the end. Good answers, guys, well done. So you got the idea. The next thing you would have to do would be to paraphrase the second sentence and then answer the question. Let's move on to body paragraphs now. When we want to write our body paragraphs, we should go back to the essay question. We always want to go back to make sure that we're answering it and our essay is on topic. So the question is, or the instructions are, to what extent do you agree with this method? This is where we need to make a decision. In our brainstorming, we came up with a few reasons why we agreed and a few reasons why we disagreed. But to write a very neat, precise, and coherent essay, we need to decide which reasons or which opinion can I write best about. Now, it doesn't even really matter what your real opinion is. They're not grading you on your opinion. They're grading you on your ability to express your ideas. So whatever you're going to find easiest to write about is what you should write about. So pick a side. Do you agree or disagree? So regarding banning car usage in cities, I said, okay, reduce traffic, reduce pollution, increase public transport. And I said, but on the other hand, there's not enough infrastructure to deal with it, and businesses and city residents may suffer. I need to pick a side, and I'm going to go disagree because I think it's just easier for me to write about these ideas. Okay, not necessarily because that's my opinion. So, my introduction was, as global population has increased, so has the number of cars. This dramatic rise has led to the suggestion that large urban areas should prohibit private vehicles. I agree with this to a large extent for two reasons, and this essay will explain why. Here are my two reasons. Body paragraph 1, I talk about lack of infrastructure to be able to cope with this. Body paragraph 2, I talk about city residents and businesses relying on the use of cars. So I've taken my ideas from my brainstorming and I've made them the main body of my paragraphs. So what's the formula then to write a coherent and precise body paragraph? So we always start with an opening sentence, and the opening sentence gives my main idea. For example, infrastructure or lack of infrastructure. I then write 1 to 2 supporting sentences where I give reasons or explain what I mean by lack of infrastructure and how this can negatively affect cities. I then move on to give evidence. Evidence could be examples. So you have to explain yourself by giving an example. You can choose a city, for example, that has done this and where it hasn't worked and it's had a negative impact. You can give a fact or you can make it up. Okay, this is not an academic essay for university. You're not getting graded on this for, for the content as much. You're getting graded on your ability to express your ideas and write a coherent essay. So in the IELTS, it's probably one of the only times in an essay where we can say it's okay to make it up and make up a source. For example, a recent study found that blah, 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 blah. And you don't have to say where this study was or what this study was. You're just using it as an example to support your main idea. Then you want to end with a closing sentence where you restate your main idea again. So you're coming around in a circle. You start with your main idea and you end again with your main idea. Let's look at an example. My opening sentence is, banning cars from the central business districts of a number of large urban areas will actually cause additional problems due to insufficient infrastructure. Here's my main idea. My paragraph is going to be about insufficient infrastructure. Now I'm going to give reasons for why I think this. As tens of thousands of commuters who relied on using their own cars will suddenly be required to find alternative methods of transport to enter the city, existing public transport facilities and infrastructure will be overwhelmed. Okay, will be overwhelmed because there'll be tens of thousands of people who were using cars who will now have to use public transport, and it will not be able to accommodate. I move on by giving even more supporting detail by providing an example. For example, simply adding extra train services will not work if the train stations cannot cope with these new commuters, not computers. Especially as most of them need to enter and exit the city during peak hour. So how are they going to cope with peak hour? Adding new trains is not going to be a sufficient enough response. Now I want to end with my closing statement, restate my idea. Therefore, simply banning cars without additional investment in other services is a recipe for disaster. So therefore, I've given you my reason, and here I'm providing you with a closing idea that we can't just ban cars if we're not going to invest in improving infrastructure. And here's what it will look like, okay? Your body paragraphs, your lines should all be, you shouldn't have spaces. So you'll only leave a space in between each paragraph. Okay, second body paragraph, the same formula. Main idea is, there will also be devastating economic consequences as many businesses in city centres rely on private vehicles to deliver supplies on a daily basis. So businesses will suffer, is my main idea. I explain this or give reasons by saying without this form of transport, these businesses will soon close. So this is a major issue here. For example, restaurants require daily food deliveries in the same way a florist needs their flowers brought in early each morning. So here I've given a specific example of what kinds of businesses will suffer. Restate my idea. While a ban on private cars may improve traffic and lower pollution, it will also cause businesses to fail and increase unemployment. Again, going back to the idea of how it's going to affect businesses, which I mentioned in sentence 1. And here it is, okay? One coherent paragraph. So, task time. Not enough time to write an entire body paragraph, but I would like you guys to try and write the opening sentence of one of your body paragraphs answering this question. So you guys brainstormed earlier about why the use of computers, phones, and TVs are harmful to children. You came up with some of your own ideas. I now want you to take one of those ideas and write it into an opening sentence. Okay, Dinah and Muhammad, good, well done. So an example of one opening sentence to one of the paragraphs is, spending excessive time in front of electronic media severely damages the vision of growing children. So that body paragraph is going to be all about how does technology reduce the vision of children. Dinah wrote, one of the biggest reasons why I agree with the statement is due to the harmful effects caused on the health of our eyes. So again, related to vision. Well done. Let's move on now to the final part of the essay, which is the conclusion, looking at the formula. So always start it with to conclude or in conclusion. Paraphrase the general statement or the first part of the essay question. Paraphrase the second part of the essay question. And then, in my opinion, answer the question. I agree or I disagree because, and then summarize the key points. The key points are your main ideas. Main idea from paragraph 1, main idea from paragraph 2. For example, in conclusion, increasing ownership of private vehicles has resulted in a number of significant urban issues. It has been suggested that an effective solution would be to remove these vehicles from city zones. Again, same idea, banning, prohibiting, removing. Answer the question and summarize key points. In my opinion, banning private vehicles is not a viable option, as public transport services would not be able to cope with the higher demand, and many companies relying on private cars to run their businesses successfully. So again, I've restated my opinion that I disagree, and I've said why, and I've summarized my 2 reasons, which were public transport will not be able to cope, or infrastructure, and relating it back to businesses or companies. Okay, so just summarizing the 2 things you talked about in your essay. And here's what my conclusion will look like. Task. Well, sorry, that's the wrong essay question. It should be related to your topic, which was this one. So I want you to now write the 3rd sentence of your conclusion. So the last sentence where you conclude, answer the question, and summarize your 2 points. All right, time's almost up. I just want the last sentence of your conclusion. Okay, very good. So 2 examples here. One, overall, I agree with the statement that excessive technology can have detrimental effects on our health. Good. Another example, I completely support the viewpoint that too much time in front of television deteriorates the eyesight capacity and also results in time loss. Excellent. One comment, just make sure, guys, that you directly relate to the subject in the question. So here the subject is children. So just make sure that you do mention children in your conclusion, because children is what this is about. It's not about adults, it's not about people in general, it's specifically about kids. So just make sure that you remember to include that in there. Okay, good. We did this. Okay, so the final product of your essay should look like this. You should be able to see 4 distinct paragraphs. And as you can see here, I've left a space in between each paragraph. It makes it nice and easy for the reader to identify each part of the essay. So let's recap. The first thing you need to do is look for keywords, find out what the topic is, what's the subject, what's the opinion. Okay, what is this essay about? Unpack the question. So identify the 3 parts of it, because you're going to use those 3 parts to write your intro. Identify the topic. Make sure that you identify specifically what the question is about so that you answer it correctly. And then use the formula to write your essay, okay, which is what we just looked at. So, a few little exercises for us to practice. I'm going to show you an example of an introduction that's out of order, and I want you to reorder it. Okay, so A, B, and C. Just give me the correct order using the letters there. Okay, so you've all written CAB. Let's have a look at the answer. Well done, CAB. So here is our general statement. Unsustainable forms of energy, such as oil, coal, and gas, are currently used by many nations. The specific idea is, as they are the main cause of climate change and will soon be exhausted, some people propose taking advantage of nuclear power. I agree with this to a large extent for 2 reasons, and this essay will explain why. It's a nice introduction there. What about this conclusion? Okay, so what's the answer for this one? B, C, A. In conclusion, we always start off with in conclusion, there is no doubt that the popularity of the internet and social media has led to increased public interest in some topics that may be considered a waste of time. However, the globalized world allows people from all over the world to learn about and contribute to each other's societies and cultures. In my opinion, so we'll always start the last paragraph by answering the question and giving your opinion, and then summarizing the 2 points that you discussed. So in my opinion, the power of the internet can be harnessed in a positive way to enable people to help each other through online charitable giving, as well as making friends from all over the world through popular applications such as Facebook. So stating my opinion, and then the 2 topics or the 2 main ideas that were discussed in this essay. And we know that they were helping other people and making friends. So some tips on writing an agree, disagree essay. Make sure you do what the instructions tell you. Here you're told to agree or disagree, so pick a side. Be aware of your word count. You need to write at least 250 words. If you write under that, you will be penalized and your score will suffer. So you want to practice, guys, as much as you can, writing essays and getting used to writing 250 words in 40 minutes. Take care with your writing. If the examiner can't read it, then they can't mark it. Most of us these days are used to either using our thumbs to type or our hands on a keyboard, and we're not used to writing by hand anymore, many of us. So if you're one of those people, I suggest you practice writing an essay in 40 minutes, timing yourself, using a pen or a pencil, just to get used to the act of writing again, and writing neatly. So if they can't read a word, they're not going to spend time trying to figure out what you've written. They're just going to go, I can't understand that, that's a mistake. And you're going to get penalized. So write neatly. Avoid writing memorized essays. A lot of people think, oh, okay, well, if I memorize an essay on transport, and if I memorize an essay on family, and if I memorize an essay on global warming, then when I go in there, if I get one of those topics, I just write what I've memorized. And I do know of people who have done that. Examiners always know when you've done that because it's always slightly off topic or doesn't always specifically answer the question. So you'll end up getting a 0. Leave a line space between each paragraph. As you saw in mine, you saw chunks of writing. It makes it nice and clear for the examiner to mark. You want to make it as easy for the examiner to read as possible and not get them annoyed because it could affect your score. Proofread. Try to leave about a minute or 2 minutes at the end if you can and go back and read. A lot of us, after an hour of writing, finish and go, oh, I'm done, I don't even want to look at it. But it's really important that you do go back and look at it because even native speakers make spelling and grammar mistakes when you're trying to write quickly. So you want to catch them before the examiner does. When I did my IELTS test, I went back and read my writing and saw silly little mistakes. I thought, oh goodness, I'm glad that I saw them before I submitted it because otherwise they would have marked me down. So a lot of the time when we're writing quickly, we make mistakes that we won't see unless we go back and read. So proofreading is mega important. That's it about the advantage, disadvantage essay. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask now.